Welcome to Tiffdoesloans Podcast. Today I have Adrian Casas. How are you doing?
Amazing. How are you doing?
All right. Thank you so much for coming.
Great.
Yes. And Adrian is the owner of Get Greater Inc. So thank you so much for joining me today. Basically, you help people get repair all their credit, basically to get them aligned with, I don't think it's only home purchases, but like just basically getting their credit cleaned up and on the proper, like, I guess you could say, like getting on that proper channel to, succeeding in whatever purchase.
Yeah, exactly. So like getting people on the path of
Yep.
homeownership.
There you go.
Just helping them get from a place where they're unqualified due to credit,
Yep.
or maybe they're not getting the best terms due to credit, and getting them to a level where they're getting the best interest rates, the best sort of products,
Yep.
because their profile, kind of meets that credit worthiness
Yep.
level. Yeah.
And it definitely does make a difference. Like, it's going to change like lender to lender, bank to bank, but there is always an area in, like, when it comes to your pricing, when you hit a certain credit, that there will be a pricing hit. So it's like, and these are, it's in all different levels. Each lender or bank, it could be different, but the higher that you have your credit, the less hits that you're going to take, and the least that it's going to cost you, So it's always good to kind of get on track. So this is amazing. I have invited him here today so we can kind of get some tips and some tricks and more people on track to getting their home purchase.
Absolutely.
Especially after this crazy, last few years in the market. Also, a couple of things. If you do have a customer, so I have talked to a few, and when it comes to, can you tell us a little bit about your credit agency and what kind of puts you apart? And I'm sure that there's a few things that you yourself have heard that maybe give credit agencies like a bad rep.
Yeah.
So what are some things that you for sure run by?
Yeah,
And,
like from the most basic level, I would say what sets us apart is me and my team.
Yep.
Our integrity, our character, we'll place it, against anyone's, because we will turn down business if it means telling the truth and
Yep.
being completely honest with someone. There's absolutely a lot of, ads that are running and pumping all the time with really awesome, taglines that say, get your credit score at 730 days, and it's not that honest, because not everyone can get to that level in that short amount of time. It really depends on what's going on with their profile. So
if you're at like 698, maybe
okay,
get
maybe
to 700.
maybe they can make an adjustment and get there. Yeah.
Maybe if you're off a point, let's be real, like that's too good to be true.
Yeah, and again, I don't blame people for wanting to believe that. Mm-hmm. And, they get into that type of program and they feel let down because it doesn't happen. Yeah. So they just associate everyone that's doing great work. And I'm not going to say that our company is the only one that's doing great work. There's certainly a lot of awesome people in this industry that I know of that are doing really great work and that are really trying to help people and trying to align with what their goals are. And, ultimately it comes down to that first pillar, which is, who's going to be honest, who's going to be transparent, who's going to set the proper expectations, who's going to actually educate on the entire process, at the most basic level. And once you get past that, then it's, who's going to get the results, like who's going to hold me accountable to making the adjustments that I need. So it's kind of like a personal trainer and, gym goer sort of relationship. You can go to the gym all you want with your personal trainer, but if you're eating McChickens after every workout, you're not going to get the level you want.
It's a full...
Mm-hmm. It takes two to tango.
Yeah.
And it also requires like, constant emphasis on what those controllables are, because there's so many components that go into what your credit score is. It's really a number that determines your credit worthiness, but your profile is as unique as your experiences.
Exactly.
So we just try to meet people where they are.
I know, and I've been hearing that a lot. It's kind of like how people compare their lives, or like they're talking about their algorithm. Like, your algorithm is what you are. Like, in social media, if you're just getting a bunch of garbage,
I might fight you on that, because my friend sends me cat videos all the time, and now I'm a cat person.
No, you gotta be intentional. You gotta be intentional and don't like it. I know that the cat might be cute.
I gotta not like it.
You have to not like it.
They're pretty funny videos sometimes.
Just hold back. And I have done this. I've been doing this for a long time. I'm very intentional about but every once in a while, my brother sends me a lot of videos, and we're siblings, and all these are really funny, and you do funny things to your siblings, and I could relate to most of them. But I'll send him a laughy face, but I refuse to like the video. I will not like the video. Right. So, but see, there's these little, because overall, if I keep doing it, and now they're going to keep sending them to me. So, but you just got to be intentional. I've literally,
I see cats everywhere.
Luckily, I'm not a cat person. Luckily, I don't have a bunch of cats popping out. Like, if my sister would send me any of that, I would text her, don't ever again. Let's just stop this right now. But no, but I feel like it's the same thing kind of with your credit and everything. It's like, oh, it's toxic, this. Well, ultimately, it's whatever you're doing. It's what your habits are aligning with. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's not always, especially with these last few years. And I feel like a lot of people did have 100% on their payments, maybe up until last year, or the end of 2022, when things just skyrocketed, 2023. And now people that were never late on anything are all of a sudden kind of late. And it's like, it wasn't like a habit that they had, but now, maybe there was, especially sometime in the last 4 years, I think everybody at least had a patch of time where they might have gotten a little into a hole or behind on something, maybe lost their job for a little bit, maybe, there's so many things. But I feel like in the past few years, at least, so maybe, it wasn't on those people that it wasn't happening before, but maybe they had to sacrifice. They needed to do something.
Yeah. I mean, COVID happened.
Yes. So certain things happen. So for these people that now they're like, oh, I got so behind. So how could we kind of help them? What are things that they could do, or little habits that they could tweak to kind of get that back on the right path? Maybe they lost their job for a little bit. Maybe they did get behind for 3 or 6 months.
Yeah. So I think
what can they do?
First thing we have to do is define what the problem is.
Yeah.
Does the individual have a liquidity, cash flow problem, meaning that, they just
I think it's been a cash flow problem. Yeah, let's go with cash flow problem.
Okay, let's say it's cash flow problem.
Yeah,
okay.
Let's go with cash flow.
So what's happened as a result of that change in income is what you're seeing now is the record high increases in consumer debt. Yep. So you see that on people's credit card statements now. Yep. Utilization has gone from really low to now everyone's above the limit.
Yeah,
above the limit.
Yes.
Now it's they're at the cap where the bank says you can't use more than this, and they're above it. We're looking at credit reports with 109, 120% utilization. Yeah. And that's the sign of the time. So if that's the case, then we need to figure out what we need to do to tackle that debt. That's the first thing that we need to look at. And there's a couple ways to do it. Yep. One is it's the snowball effect. Yep. Second is the avalanche approach to it. And then lastly is, the transition of debt. So I'll go through
what's a snowball one. Yeah.
Snowball effect is you look at your credit cards and you can see which of your credit cards is closest to the goal. So if we've defined the goal as 30% of the overall credit limit, or if you want to make it really simple, like if you don't want to go into the math, what is the card that you owe least? So what's that dollar amount on the card that you owe with the lowest amount? So work on that one. So on that account, you're focusing on making a double payment, or you're paying more than the minimum, so that you're most of your emphasis is on paying that one down first. You're maintaining the others, so you're paying minimum payments on all the other ones. Once you pay that one off, boom, you've knocked one out. You move to the next level, and then you do the exact same thing, and then the next level, and then that's the snowball effect. You start to see your debt start to decrease as you're doing that. That's probably
a longer one, right?
I think that one is the one that will give you the best impact on your credit score usually,
because you're just consistently focusing on one. Okay.
The avalanche method would be you look at, and this one takes a little bit more research. You got to look at your credit card statement or log into your apps and see which of your cards are charging you the most interest.
Okay.
And then you focus on that one first, because that one's the one that's bleeding you the most.
Okay.
Meaning it's compounding every month. It's doing the opposite of what you want your index funds and your money-making accounts to do for you. It's
I feel like that's always the issue. They're always doing the opposite of what we want.
So you focus on that one, and you do the exact same thing as a snowball effect, but because you're focusing on the ones that are the highest interest, you start to pay less overall on interest fees. So that's the avalanche approach. And then the third one is finding a way to transition the debt. So you as a lender, you can talk to clients that have equity in their home, and you can try to cash out, refinance, and see if it makes sense to maybe use some of that equity to pay off credit cards, because even an interest rate at 7% is still better than 30 and 35% for credit cards, So
that's huge right now.
That's a huge shift. And, the last thing that you can do within that same pillar is, as a company, we have, a system within our ecosystem where we can see, which personal lenders are giving clients the best sort of transition to debt. So we work with lenders like SoFi. These are huge institutions that just do personal loans. And, we can see if it makes sense to transition that debt over, who's giving you the best monthly payment and interest rate, so you're saving money. And what ends up happening is when you transition credit card debt over to a different vehicle, even if it's like a cash out refinance, that person's credit score is going to shoot up, usually 50 to 100 points, depending on what their profile looks like. But, those are probably going to be the best things to do with debt right now.
If you're just trying to wipe it out,
the
refi. I
will say right now, we see it all the time. There's tons of ads going out, and I think we should define what's the difference between consolidation and settlement.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's a ton of ads like, hey, consolidate your debt, and it gets put into this box where most of these companies are not trying to consolidate your debt. What they're trying to do is get you to settle your debts, which means that you have to let go of those accounts. So if your goal is to purchase a home, work with Tiffany in order to do that, that's the worst thing you can do.
I was just going to ask if you're going, so say that somebody got to the point where they have maybe a couple trade lines where it's either they're being told that they can settle, but I have heard that messes it up more.
Well, let me give you the scenario. So let's say that, credit applicant A has 5 credit cards and is maxed out on these credit cards, can't make the payment. They're making the minimum payment, so they're treading water, and they're just like, man, I have a cash flow problem. It's really enticing when a debt settlement company, comes to this person and says, stop paying them, pay us, and we cut your monthly bill in half. So you were paying, let's say, $800, $1,000 to these credit cards monthly. You pay us $500 monthly, and then we will negotiate the debt that you owe these credit cards as a whole, usually bringing the total debt down 50% or whatever, right? There's a fee associated with that. It sounds great, and some people have to go that route. There are some people that are seriously considering bankruptcy, and they should be because they don't have income and they're having trouble, that may be a good thing to consider. But when you're trying to do something with your credit, like finance a home or finance a business, going the route of debt settlement means that you're deciding to not pay those 5 credit card companies. And when the second you decide that, 30 days later, you're getting hit with a late payment. 60 days later, it's rolling. 90 days, 120 days. Now it's getting to the point where those accounts are charged off, and that is dragging down your credit score. Oh. It's literally dragging it through the mud.
So it's kind of like a swoop. Like they shouldn't.
It's almost as...
So you're not paying the... But even if they tell you, like, yeah, so those are tricky, because I did just have a client that thought that he was doing like a debt consolidation thing, and it really, luckily it worked out for us because we ended up not purchasing for another like 3 months, and like we stayed on top of it, and we made sure that we are going to do this rapid rescore, and then we didn't, and then the seasoning of time just luckily was on our side. But that we could not get, and we couldn't get any documentation from like the settlement, and it was all just jumbled up in like really holding putting a hit on his credit that was just holding it up, that we couldn't get it up to that certain point. So
I mean, maybe you saved tricky. It by just telling them to maintain and tread water. You know, just sometimes doing that alone helps people.
It helped.
But again, you got to meet people where they are, you know?
Yeah.
Some people really do have issues with income, and we have to define that first. Like, okay, like this is an income issue. Like you can't even afford to make transitions. You can't even look into consolidation through a loan because your credit isn't there, right? So like now the avenues or doors that could potentially be open for you are not available. So, you know, that's what our team does really good at, is we try to define and diagnose what the issues are, and then we come up with an action plan for them, and we lay out adjustments that they should be making on their own. And, you know, it's going to require work in most cases to get a full turnaround. But, you know, as long as the client understands what's within our own scope of as far as controllables, what are defined as controllables for them, and we kind of stay on the path, then, you know, more often than not, they're going to see significant changes to their profile.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a commitment just like anything else. So like when I kind of pitch it to, same thing about like getting a house. It's like, it's a goal, you know, like we need to build the roadmap. So sometimes I always tell them to just come to me first, and then like I would get them, you know, if it was to that point where we couldn't do that fast and easy, because some it's like one step, I can go straight to the bureaus, we can take care of it. But in other cases we can't. And that's where it comes in, and it's like, look, it is going to take you longer, but it's possible. So again, just like anything else, it's a commitment, and you know, you're probably going to have to sacrifice, but yeah, that the credit will get you. And then what are like the 3 most like common mistakes that you see people do that impact them negatively? So maybe I would say, especially right now, a lot of people maybe have never had credit issues, and maybe they did get halted by something in the last years. So I think a lot of people too, they might get embarrassed, or like they don't know what to do. Yeah. So in those cases, do you see them like kind of avoiding it? I'm
really sensitive to the idea that, you know, this could be a scarlet letter for some people, especially like if they look at their score online and they're like, oh man, it's not like 800. You know, they can view that as, you know, something that is, you know, against what the social status quo is or whatever. So there's a fear of like looking at it in depth, just like some people have a phobia of stepping on a scale. Sometimes I feel that way, you know, but it's important, you know? Yeah. So number one, I would say if your goal is to try to finance a home, you want to meet with a lender. First and foremost, because the scoring model that you're going to see online is drastically different than what you're going to see when you pull credit through a mortgage office.
They are.
So if that's going to be the determining factor for interest or certain loan products, you should step on that scale sooner rather than later, right? So that's number one. Number two, I would say a common mistake right now is, making changes to, overall total debt. And you think you're doing a good job by paying off a car early or paying off, an installment loan early because you have a goal to purchase a home. But the way that installment loans work is it's a little different than revolving trade lines. Revolving trade lines meaning like credit cards that you have. For loans, you get a little bit of a benefit from, paying that loan to maturity. So having a term of 60 months, you making your payment monthly, they're kind of giving you a little bit of a benefit because they see, okay, you're going to make this payment for 60 months, let's say as an example. If you pay that account early, you lose that benefit. You now then close that account that's open and active, and it can hurt your credit score. So if you have a goal of financing a home, don't pay off your installment loan before you meet with Tiffany. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two is if you're meeting with Tiffany and you have gone into contract, woohoo, you're in escrow, don't go and finance furniture. Don't go and finance a car.
It's the worst.
It will literally
do not. Yeah, but I
talk
usually
to me about that. What does that do for the loan process?
Yeah. So really, everybody's different. So if you are sitting with a ton of assets and you have 800 credit, you can go finance. Odds are you can finance whatever you want. I mean, definitely tell me. We'll have an open communication. But not everybody. If we just say that because, it's like, and I usually tell my clients, like, hey, like we used to have this thing at the place I used to work, and I love my old manager. He would be like, you need to tell your client, like, you are at the ceiling. Mm-hmm. We are at the ceiling of this DTI. So we're at the ceiling. You can't even sneeze. Like, no sneezing. No sneezing for the next 3 weeks or 3 to 6 weeks or however, I think escrow 4 weeks. So it really depends, but I do try to, and I've always kind of hung on to that just because he was so great. But everybody's going to be different, but absolutely they should be aware. I should be the one. It's not there. I should be the one to tell them, like, hey, if you get a couch, not a big deal, but just tell me, let me see, a $2,000 couch might be good, but then you go and find a $15,000, that might make a difference,
So finish the entire house. Maybe we should. I said
a microwave, not a living room. Okay, so definitely, but I have very good communication with my clients, and then if they are super close, I will also let them know, but also the realtor, hey, if you hear anything, they're talking about, buying some stuff, let me know. So we're all a team here. Yeah. If you saw them in a furniture store, no, let's stay on top of this. So, but usually they do know, but absolutely. You just never know.
Yeah. I mean, those are common mistakes, that people just don't know.
Or get a new car.
Yeah. The other one is, running their credit too often.
Yep.
So inquiries are hard inquiries. There's two different types of inquiries. There's a soft inquiry that does not impact your credit score at all. And there's hard inquiries that absolutely do. And it's usually 2 to 3 points on average.
It's so wild. Mm-hmm. I messed up that once for me personally. And I really messed up my credit. It was 3 years ago when I was trying to rent a room. And it was just super confusing for me. And he said I need to pull my credit. And I did it 3 times, 3+ times. I think I did it. I did it a lot. And I mean, luckily it all worked out. I got the place. But I was whoa, I took a major, I don't even know what I did. And I wasn't printing for me. So then I kept doing it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was is. Yeah, but I was like, and I'm in mortgage, like I'm close to credit in these things. And I was like, man.
It just depends on where you're looking at it, and our clients, we provide them with credit monitoring. It's not, Credit Karma. You actually get 3 bureaus, full detailed report.
And that's going to be the platform that we use, right? Because there are 2 different platforms. Mm-hmm. So I do have a lot of clients that are like, oh, my credit's here according to like Credit Karma. Mm-hmm. But almost always, I have seen it go the other way, but usually it pulls lower than what Credit Karma says. Yeah. I have had it. I was like, whoa, girl.
You will get pleasantly surprised sometimes.
I was like, oh my God, it's more. It's probably only happened like once or twice, but that it's gone the other way. But yeah, that was definitely like a.
And I'll challenge that. Usually what that means is they haven't actually reran the report through Credit Karma.
Oh, okay.
So they're looking at old data usually, So not a lot of people look at okay, what's the date of this report that I'm looking at? So that's amazing. Usually, it's gonna curve on the lower end of things. So you want to be sure.
What are a couple credit strategies that they could use? Maybe I hear a lot of okay, they want us to be at 30%, right? That's the main thing, be at 30%. Yeah. But 2023, 2024, a lot of people can't do that. Right now, like you said, they're everyone's maxed out. Yeah. So are there some tricks or some tips that I've heard a few things, so maybe you can iron them out, but that you can make a double payment past a certain point. So you're supposed to maybe do a double payment. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, double payment, what that means is, you're
twice but not at the same time.
Yeah, it's twice in a cycle.
Yeah, so you're supposed to do it. Do you know the sweet spot for that? Are you giving all the secrets?
No. Honestly, for mortgage, it probably makes more sense. When you have a loan that is.
But for their credit cards.
For credit cards, it's gonna impact you when the actual balance gets reported to the credit bureaus.
Okay.
So there's 2 dates for every creditor you're working with. One is a statement date, which is the date that they send you your bill. Mm-hmm. They also will report your balance on that date.
Okay.
And then there's the due date, right? So those are 2 different dates. So as long as you can max out your credit cards.
Yeah.
As long as you pay them off before the statement date of the next cycle.
Before the statement
then
date. Okay.
That is the balance that gets reported to the bureau. So that's a trick right there. A lot of business owners that we work with, we just try to get them to make that adjustment alone, and it helps them drastically.
And it makes a huge difference.
And now that we're talking about business, let's talk about businesses. So if you're a business owner, transitioning your personal debt to your business side is going to help you drastically, because your business debt doesn't report, as long as it's not personally guaranteed. There's some Capital One cards and some credit cards out there that are linked to your personal side, but as long as it's not, for example, as a business, we have several business credit cards. Those balances don't report on my own personal credit profile. It doesn't impact me whatsoever. So just transitioning that debt, huge benefit. Third is transitioning of debt. So one cool trick right now is there are still products out there that will give you 0% introductory APRs depending on your credit score. So if you have the credit score that can help you qualify for these types of lines, like Chase Slate has a good product where right now it's 0% for 18 months. So if you can meet the qualifier for credit, where you can take your credit card debt that you're paying 30% APR, 35% interest rate on it, and transition it to a 0% for 18 months, you're saving so much money.
Yeah.
And you can focus on paying that off, and everything is going to the debt. And you can, get out of that, much quicker, which will improve your credit score. So those are some quick tricks.
Yeah. That's amazing. I feel like it's definitely the movement of those. Just like the double payments.
Because you said so you said 30%. So 30% is.
But I don't think most are at 30% anymore.
No.
I think it's like most are max.
Yeah, most
they
are max.
said we're at like 1.1 trillion.
It's bad. I mean, we're on the front lines. Like we see, like even our own clients, sadly, you know, we're working with them to try to make these changes. And, you know, we run reviews for clients every 60 days, meaning we run a brand new report. We give them a summary of findings. And we see, as instead of going down, we're going up on these on these utilization percentages. But it's tough too,
like but it's also like a cash flow thing. So, you know, it's
everything's more expensive.
Everything keeps going up. And, you know, this it just, from 4 years ago, I mean, even there was a video recently, and I didn't, you know, fully check, but somebody had their receipt from 2020 and got all the grocery items, and then they went and rebought all those items, and it was like something ridiculous, like $120 versus like over $400.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
And just like, you know, so it's tough. And that's why I really wanted to pinpoint to, you know, really who we're talking to here is, you know, it definitely has been a different period that people that never really looked into like credit strategies because they just paid it on time. They took care of it. And unfortunately, these past few years, for, you know, it doesn't matter how organized you are, or, you know, life happened and things have gone up, and it's put a lot of people in a different bracket than where they would ever, you know, have gone before.
And also people are busy. You know, like, you know, most people have a 9 to 5.
Yeah. But you can have it all automatic now.
You can.
You cannot use busy as an excuse. There's an app for everything and automated payments.
It's true.
I think the biggest thing is, like, I could easily set up an automated payment, but is it going to be in there? you know?
I mean, that's the thing. People make the mistake of putting auto pay, and then they come to find out that their payment wasn't made. There's some sort of, you know, error that happened where their account was in charge. Like, now they're coming to us for help, you know? So you can't
the error, the money wasn't in there.
You can't just set it. Yeah, exactly.
There's an error.
I have a checkings and a savings.
I don't want to ask you this, but did you have the money in there? Well, it's just like, I thought it was going to go in and like this time.
Yeah, I was supposed to go in there. For sure. I mean, that's what happens.
I mean,
the
Starbucks thing went in right when that one was supposed to go in. The struggle.
There is no set it and forget it method. I mean, look, I'll give you, you know, a couple of examples that we worked with, like, you know, Fortune 500 CEOs that give their assistants the responsibility of making their payments, and they don't do it.
Yeah.
And now they feel like they're not responsible because they gave that responsibility away, and it's like,
no,
it was your responsibility. You know, you gotta
that's totally.
You gotta inspect what you expect. You know, that's number one rule of management.
But if you're giving it up, if you're giving up that right, like, it's still, you're still responsible. It's the same thing if you were leaving somebody else in charge and then they did something terrible. They're still under you.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
exactly.
it's still, sure, they're going to be, you know, they're probably going to get in more trouble, but it's still going to be frowned upon. You know, they're going to be like, why, really, this guy?
Like, credit card companies don't care.
It's still going to be a representation. So it's just, you know, that I just think that right now, especially this market, just to, you know, give people some tips and tricks. And just to kind of wrap up here, how long, I know it's going to be like person to person, but how long does that process kind of take? Like, depending if it's just like some credit card things, or maybe if they have like student loans, like installment loans, maybe cars, is there kind of a bracket for them to kind of that they would fall into?
So, you know, definitely you have to look at the profile, because there's so many things and so many nuances that go into it. But, you know, I would say, you know, if the goal is to try to purchase a home and your credit score is in the 500s, then you certainly want to give yourself 6 months, 12 months, so that you can see some drastic improvements, because you're not going to go up 150 points in 30 days, contrary to what these ads say. So you want to make sure that you kind of define what those things are that are hurting you, and then we make an adjustment immediately. Because if that doesn't change, like if you just enroll into our program, but yet you're having trouble paying Citibank over here, your credit score is never going to improve because you're going to continue to get hit. You're bleeding. So we have to look at it. And the cool thing is that, our platform at the very beginning is all about education and value. So if you have, a scenario that you want us to look at, we will run a completely free analysis of your profile, figure out exactly what's going on, and break it down for you in a way where you understand what are the action items you need to take to get to the next level, wherever you stand. So I think that's so probably important. Best. Yeah.
And there it is. Well, thank you so much for coming in. And I'm going to have all of Adrian's stuff at the bottom for his Get Greater Inc. If this was useful, if this helped you, or if you'd like to hear more, please like, share, subscribe. And thank you, Adrian, for joining me today. And we'll see you next time.